As oral surgeons, we are referral based. Our patient comes to us because a patient is told by their dental professional that they need to see an oral maxillofacial surgeon for something.
You're really popular online. So you have a lot of videos, but you weren't always popular online, right? You had to start somewhere and you had to start posting. One thing that would scare me to death if I were in your shoes is...
There's so many factors in that. First of all, there are significant headwinds macro right now that are going on in our industry. So with more and more large scale, multi-specialty and general dental DSOs that are now getting into specialty, that's...
Welcome back to another episode of the Full Arch Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more full arch cases so you can grow the way that you want. And today I have a very, very special podcast. I recently just recorded with Dr. Jason, and we actually had some technical difficulties, but the content that he was sharing with me was some of the most special content that I've ever personally ran into. And the reason for that is he just does things differently. He's not only has built several practices out, he not only has a community that we're going to put the link down below where he helps other surgeons. And he's not only famous online as a social media content creator, he's also very, very successful at running his dental practices. And again, he's done it in a way that really I've not seen people do. And I'm sure there might be somebody else out there, but all the people that I've talked to, you have taken a road much differently than everybody else's. So I would love for you, Dr. Jason, just to give us just a quick overview of just who you are, what you do, and you can plug all the different, I know you have a lot of different things going on. Feel free to plug those. But I really want to get to, how'd you end up on this road? Like, how'd you end up taking this road? And then we'll go from there.
Fair. First of all, I hope I can live up to that. And actually, I hope I can remember much of the stuff we talked about last time. If not, it usually just comes out and hopefully it fills the void that we need to fill. So I will say this. I had a pretty typical out of residency experience. I joined a practice. I finished my training in 2003. So I came out at a time that was a very, very special time for oral maxillofacial surgery. There started to be an increase in the number of dual degree programs, 6-year programs, and I am a 4-year guy. So it was a little bit of an inflection point in our specialty. And I came out, I worked for 2 of my attendings in Manhattan, which was a goal of mine growing up on Long Island. I'm from Long Island. I went to Syracuse undergrad, went to NYU for dental school, and then ended up training at Kings County Hospital, which is SUNY Downstate's program in Brooklyn. So I'm in New York, born and raised. And as such, I had the good fortune of being introduced to a lot of really amazing hospitality-based experiences. So when I knew that I wanted to start a practice, it really was predicated on the fact that there was, at that time, very little in the way of focus on patient experience and that hospitality and understanding that we were serving a sophisticated patient base, a sophisticated customer. What we did was we really put it out there that we were trying to create and over the years redefine what I called and what I still call the optimal patient experience. So I worked for a couple of my attendings in Manhattan. That was nice. And then at the same time, I started to work in New Jersey, which is where my wife is from. And I knew we were going to set up a life here out in New Jersey. And then eventually, like many associates have, the experience doesn't go as they anticipated or as promised or as hoped. And in 2007, it became evident to me that I needed to do something on my own. So I did. And I was working itinerantly 9 different practices from upstate New York down to South Jersey, New York City, the outer boroughs, all over the place. And at the same time, found some space, gut renovated it, and started seeing patients technically as Riverside Oral Surgery in, let's call it September of 2007. And again, my goal at the time was to differentiate ourselves by providing an exceptional patient experience, and again, calling it the optimal patient experience. And I think that we've done that, and all the subsequent practices that have joined that have been either started by me or acquired or partnered with followed that same model, and it's been very, very successful for us.
Hey, happy new year. And thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got something really, really important to share with you that's going to bring massive impact to your practice. So every year, things change in your market every single year. People move, incomes change, populations change, and it's really important that you stay up to date with that. And one of the things that we offer to all of our customers, and we want to offer it to all of our listeners completely for free, is mapping out your new patients. So we're not going to only show you where your new patients are coming from on a map, just like this above, but we're also going to show you the income areas that they're coming from, the different pockets of income, as well as the populations to make sure that you have supporting areas to where you can attract more new patients. And lastly, we're going to map out all of your competition for you for free. This is 100% for free, no obligation. And we're really excited to share this with all of our listeners. So all you have to do is go to maps.smcnational.com, and it's first come, first serve. We're not going to offer this forever. So if you want to get this, get in now, get all your new patients mapped out for the new year. We're looking forward to talking to you soon. Thanks. So let's talk through that, because part of the in the dental industry, it's not fun to go to the dentist. No matter what anybody says, right? You have these places that are like, we're going to make our dental office like Disneyland. It's like, ask anybody in the United States, would you rather go to the dentist or Disneyland? Everybody's going to pick Disneyland, right? So you have this product or service that you guys offer that isn't fun, isn't something that people necessarily want to do, but you can optimize it to make it smooth. So as people go through it, it isn't as painful, both physically and emotionally. And I think this is a big issue right now in the dental industry. I've literally just today, I filmed, this is my third podcast today. Both of them, the other ones, the patient journey came up in both conversations. And I think it's this like almost mystical thing that people talk about, but there isn't really a system or something that people go after. So how did you go about like building that ideal patient journey?
Well, so, as oral surgeons, we are referral based. Maybe less so now in the day of looking at Google or Yelp or whatever, but still to a significant degree, our patient comes to us because a patient is told by their dental professional that they need to see an oral maxillofacial surgeon for something. And so it really all starts by forming strong relationships and expressing kind of what you do differently from others that are out there that would entice a referring doctor to entrust their patient in your hands, to know confidently that the outcome is going to be what they're looking for, and to safely get that patient back to their office so that they maintain their relationship with the patient, which is ultimately paramount for them because that's their business. Yeah. And so, again, I was very, very fortunate. I lived in Manhattan at the time that I was in dental school and that I was training, and so I was experiencing life in a way that I felt was really exceptional. I felt very, very fortunate to be able to do it, and so this kind of boutique hotel experience where everybody in the room knows your name and knows what it is that's important to you and what kind of the value is to you to be there. The best restaurants in the world, as I know that there are incredible restaurants all over the world, but that experience to me was something that was lacking in healthcare. When I got to Northern New Jersey in 2003, 2004, it was still very much that typically a little old lady sitting at the desk with a sliding glass window, open the window, a little bit annoyed that you're standing there in her office and saying like doctor's office or how can I help you? And just kind of that obstacle to having like a really nice experience. So everything from designing the office with an open concept, which was not in vogue at the time where we were doing it, to the color scheme, to the textures and materials used to build out the office. I was very much aware that if I paid attention to the fine details, that would be something that would come through. And, I think a lot of people don't think about the fact that ultimately, when a patient enters your office, most patients are paying attention, the discerning ones. And the discerning ones are the ones that are going to be either your greatest allies, your best advocates, or your biggest detractors if they have, let's say, suboptimal experiences.
Yeah. So I love your mindset on that. So how long did you like document that whole process, or how did you like scale it? That's probably the better question. How did you scale something like that?
So honestly, I always think to myself, the things that can be I hate to use the term because it really kind of it makes it seem like it's not the people behind it, but to automate the experience is something that it makes scaling easier. If I've had a tough time in anything as we've gotten larger, is kind of scaling the patient experience, not scaling the build out, not scaling the systems, not scaling, the materials and all that kind of stuff, but scaling the patient experience, because the further you get away from the source, the more diluted the message. And so it's been very important for me to have very, very strong people around me, people who started with me actually out there in the offices, in the field, expressing kind of what we're trying to do. So as it relates to the fit and finishes of all the offices, we have an exceptional designer that worked with us on day one, who's still with us now. Her name's Lynn Caritas. Her husband's a dentist in Jersey. We met her very early on, and she knows that if we're going to acquire or partner with a practice or remodel a practice, this is the paint color for this wall. This is the type of handle we need for the door, the color of the carpeting or whatever it is. And so all of that has really kind of been easily scaled because she's exceptional and she knows, just like, here's the deal. It's a 4,000 square foot place. It's got 6 ops. You know exactly what you need to do with it. And she knows exactly what she needs to do, and she does it. But the patient experience, it's generally because the people at the top of our organization started either across the chair or filing charts. I'm talking about years ago, of course, before everything was digital. And so they understand what I and we were trying to achieve, and it's easier to be able to then carry that out. And so as we've grown, those who were closest to the source rise to higher levels within the organization, and those who were most, let's say, engaged in understanding what we were trying to achieve are now at higher tiers. And as we grow, it's really important to have those people who understand the mission, understand the vision out there, and really kind of speaking about it and implementing it.
Yeah, I love that. And so that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people struggle with that in the dental industry, just because most people who are trying to grow, they're usually being a dentist, and then they have their team around them, and they're usually doing dentistry as well, or some form of work that they're doing. And so a lot of times people aren't focused on the business because they're working in the business, and it's really hard to scale that. You got to come out of that and get people working around you like you described, which is amazing. And so now, kind of changing gears a little bit, but in the same tone around the marketing. So in my brain, the way marketing always works for the kind of treatment that you guys do is it's really hard to do marketing, because if you do direct to consumer, you're not going to be able to sell them the services that you have, because you don't offer in the end, right? Usually the restorative goes back out to the GP offices. So it's really hard to sell something if you don't have the complete product. But you've kind of mastered this best of all worlds. Could you kind of dive into how you think about marketing and really the engine behind your growth?
For us, the marketing was really referral management, relationship management, more than anything else. As we entered an area, even in the beginning for us, there obviously needs to be brand awareness. So you need to be able to be known for something within the community that you're serving. So it's very, very important as a referral-based business to have a name and to have brand equity. And that was very, very important to us. But the bigger driver of our business is those dentists and those other medical professionals that trust us to treat their patients. So for us, it's all about, open, honest communication, transparency, the buzzword authenticity, being real, being available, and treating their patients kindly and well and predictably. And again, getting the patient back to the referring doctor's office in a way where they can comfortably treat the patient. Oral surgeons, by and large, can have a negative reputation as being, let's say, crass or a little bit conceited or difficult to deal with or whatever it is. And again, I was very aware of the way that we're seen. Optics are an important piece. Another word that wasn't used when I was starting out, but is constantly used today. And so it was very important for me to kind of change the way that oral maxillofacial surgeons were seen. And I think being more approachable, being more communicative, being more understanding, it took me years, but I spent a ton of time understanding the nuance of, let's say, implant restoration. And I spent a lot of time with prosthodontists and cosmetic dentists and restorative dentists trying to understand their art and what they need from us, so that I could better perform the procedure that will help them perform their procedure. And I think part of having the groups of people, the groups of surgeons that I work with, I never look for a surgeon. Of course, we want a strong background and all of that, but their pedigree is less important to me. What's more important is who they are as human beings, their willingness to listen and to adapt and to understand what's being asked of them and to communicate with the dentist and communicate with the patients. And all that is paramount to a successful career, far more so than like, did you go here for school? Did you train here? I mean, that's all. I mean, it's important to be well trained, period. But it's more important to be able to relate to another human being.
Yeah, 100%. Now, how do you manage your relationships now? Because I imagine as you grow, that can become a lot, right? So if it's like one practice has 20, 30 relationships, times you have 10 practice, and you have 30, or you have 200 to 300 relationships, right? I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but how do you use software, or do you how do you, because I imagine that's like the lifeblood of what you guys are doing. How do you kind of make sure that stays in check and stays the way it's supposed to?
So a lot of it is real kind of grassroots type of stuff. When it was me, before CRMs were in existence, it was really me and my team. Really my team, not me as much, but kind of remembering what was important to the referring doctor. We practice in New Jersey, so it's all New York, New Jersey. And it's like, are you a Giant fan? Are you a Jet fan? Are you a Ranger fan? Are you a Devils fan? How many kids do you have? Where are they? What are their genders? What's the school that they go to or want to go to? Do you like to have solid abutments on your implants? Would you prefer an impression coping sent to you? Now it's all, do you want a scan body so you could take a digital impression? Do you want us to take the digital impression? All of the things that are differentiators. And it's really just about paying attention to your, I say it like, and this is a horrible word in our business, but really your customer, right? So the referring doctor has choice. So does the patient, but the referring doctor has choice. And they say, you know what, I can refer to this guy or I can refer to this guy. And I'm going to refer to this guy because I know that every single time I see the patient, the implant's going to be basically where I need it. And they're going to provide me with the materials that I need to efficiently restore this case. And there's not going to be any questions and whatever. Obviously, things happen. Not every implant succeeds. Patients mostly are very happy. Sometimes they're not, usually because of a financial thing. But basically, you want to try to deliver a consistent outcome. And that comes from knowing your customer, like any other business in the world. And so the way that we know our customer is, the right way to do it in our current day and age is with a really strong CRM and a team of people who are dedicated. Now, when you get to scale, or when you're scaling, you have the people to do that. When it's just you in a private practice, you'll identify.
You are the CRM.
Exactly.
Yeah, you are the CRM. Yeah,
that's right.
Because you're like, oh yeah, this is Dr. Steve. He doesn't like when I do it this way, so I'm going to do it the other way, and you just know that. But that doesn't scale, right? Like you can't teach people that, and you try to, there's going to be holes. So the CRM, so you're saying get a CRM and manage your relationships as if your clients are not the patients, but are the doctors, which in essence, in your case, that's the correct way to look at it.
That's right. Listen, if you're a general dentist or a pediatric dentist or an orthodontist where you're like, more or less primary care, your patient, where you have these, or periodontist even, you have these long relationships with your patients.
Yeah.
We have patients like that as oral surgeons, but most of our patients are, they need us for one thing or another thing. So, maybe we see them 2 times, 3 times, 6 times. And so the relationship that really needs to endure is the relationship with the referring doctor. Now, of course, we treat our patients like gold, because the patient going back into the community, because that's the right thing to do, but also because the patient going back into the community and going back to their dentist and all of that. But, it's very important for us to have doctors who know that they can reliably count on us. You have a doctor, they accept 1 or 2 missteps in the office experience, but beyond that, they're like, all right, I'll go to the other guy. And I say guy, it could be a female also, but like, I'll go to the other practice. I'm going to try them out because this isn't working for me or whatever. And that happens.
What CRM do you use?
Salesforce.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yep. We used to use them. That's awesome. And then, so you got all of your relationships in there. And so you can see all your referring doctors. You can see how many people they've referred to you, all that kind of good stuff. That's huge. That's definitely going to give you a scalable model. Now, okay. So thinking through this, you're really popular online. So you have a lot of videos, but you weren't always popular online, right? You had to start somewhere and you had to start posting. One thing that would scare me to death if I were in your shoes is I have these referring doctors and now I'm going to hop on social media and I'm going to talk about stuff. And the things I'm going to talk about may or may make everybody happy and everybody loves me, but it also may tick everybody off and they stop referring to me, and your business could literally disappear overnight, right? Because you're only as good as your last month when you're in the business that you're in, because it's all sales driven. It's not a recurring model. So if people stop referring, you stop getting customers. So first tell me how you moved into social media, and then just continue on kind of where you're at with social media.
Yeah. So just to understand where I am in social media, you have to understand my age and where I was in my practice. So I just turned 50. In 2015, February, I was sitting here in the office that I'm currently sitting in, and I was kind of thinking about Instagram. I have right now 2 teenage daughters who were, preteen or early teens at the time. Instagram was something that they were involved with, and I was therefore somewhat interested in just kind of better understanding it. I am a social person by nature. I am a person who's interested in technology by nature. And so for me, it was kind of a natural progression, natural interest, even though I was, older, like I was in my early 40s at the time, and maybe older than I am. Well, I was older than the majority of my audience. And so February of 15, I'm thinking to myself, there's this woman, Dr. Pimple Popper. People are watching her. There's a ton of interest in that, but there were very few dentists on social media at the time. Some people who were doing more lifestyle, but fewer who were doing anything clinical at all. And so I thought to myself, let me start an Instagram account. I came up with the name. The story behind the name is of interest to some people. Bloody Tooth Guy. I named it as such because we have very close friends whose daughter had a stuffed animal at the time named Broken Tail Guy, named aptly because the tail of the stuffed animal was broken. So I figured it had an interesting sound. It was brilliant on her part to call it that, I thought. So I thought Bloody Tooth Guy fit that bill. I started just taking pictures of bloody teeth. That's it. I've never really removed or deleted any of that old stuff. It's all there if you scroll up for 2 hours. And those were just pictures of bloody teeth. Then there was a guy named Ben Johnson who practices on the West Coast. PNWOMS is his account. And he was West Coast, I was East Coast. And we had this kind of like friendly rivalry on who was posting more bloody teeth or whatever it would be. And as Instagram evolved and was looking for content and became video and became stories, we were there both available to them to use our content to push that. And my audience grew organically. I never once paid for a follower. I never once did anything like that. It grew organically to the point where, I had all these primarily younger dental professionals, people who obviously had an inclination to be interested in surgery, from around the world, South America, the Middle East, Asia, Eastern Europe, Russia, of course, USA, Canada, and Mexico, and we were and Australia, New Zealand. I mean, literally all over the world. And it was blowing my mind. And I get questions even now every day from people, or really positive stuff about being inspirational to them or teaching them how to do things just by virtue of watching me do things. So as Instagram evolved, I evolved, and vice versa. And yes, I was very concerned about how it would affect my patients. I was anonymous for the first 4 years because I wasn't sure how my competition would use it against me. I wasn't sure what the HIPAA aspects of it. I really wasn't sure. If you look at my stuff, especially the early stuff, it was just bloody teeth. So there was no human involved at all. But as I started putting more content out there that was showing surgical procedures, I became much more aware. And at DIA, which is this Dental Influencers Alliance conference that PNW and a bunch of others started, I revealed myself. This was maybe about 3 years ago, and it was unbelievably surreal for me because people were lining up to take selfies with me, and like I walked into this room. It was a party in Scottsdale, and in that moment, at that party, I was like a celebrity. And I say this without trying to sound like whatever.
I know. Yeah, no, it's weird. Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing for me because I was like, I'm this middle-aged dentist from Jersey,
I had the same. So I started this podcast, the one that we're on actually right now. And I started it like right after COVID. And for a while I didn't go out. Like I didn't leave anywhere. I didn't go anywhere. And then I went to a big dental event. There's thousands of people there. There's probably like 3,000-4,000 people there. And like people were stopping me and they're like, Gary. And I'm like, I don't remember this person. Oh man. And I get nervous, right? I always forget people's names and stuff when I get nervous. And I'm like, oh, what? I'm like, oh yeah, talking with them. And then it happened again and again. And I was just like, what in the world? Like, did I forget? And then I realized it was like, no, they know me because they listen to me every single day.
Right.
I just had never met them in person, right? Like They know me, they know my face, they know my voice. It's a very surreal feeling. Like it's really, you're at a whole nother scale. So I can only imagine what that felt like.
That night was amazing for me. And it was, I mean, listen, it's good for the ego. I'm not above feeling like that. It's definitely great. I mean, there have been times where I'll be out with friends, or my wife or whoever, and people will come up to me that it's not a dental thing. It's, again, I'm in the city. It's like a dental student from NYU or something, and be like, are you bloody tooth guy? And like, they're taking pictures. I mean, it's great. It's a nice thing, I guess I could see, if I ever became like, whatever, but I welcome it. People. I love it.
So a lot of people, two things. So I work with a lot of dentists. So I have a lot of dentists who right now their referrals are hurting. And so they're oral surgeons. They come to us and they say, we're not getting as many referrals as we used to, because a lot of GP offices are doing a lot of the procedures themselves. And so they come to us for marketing help. And I'm like, I can't help you with marketing because I'm a direct to consumer marketer. I can't do the marketing that you need. And they're like, no, let's do it. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Your whole business is built off of referrals. You don't even do the whole process. Like you can't even sell it if you wanted to. If a patient came to you today and said, do the whole thing for me, you wouldn't even know how to quote the price.
Right.
So they're not going to buy from you. What is your advice to those people that are like, man, I feel like the world's shutting in on me. I have people like Gary that are telling me, sorry, I can't help you from a marketing perspective because that's not the business model that you've created. And at the same time, they're not getting the referrals that they used to get. How would you help someone like that if they came to you?
So there's so many factors in that. First of all, there are significant headwinds macro right now that are going on in our industry, macro economy wise and then macro industry wise. And so with more and more large scale, multi-specialty and general dental DSOs that are now getting into specialty, that's something that you really have to think about and really kind of double down on the relationships that are strong. But you have to show what you do differently. One major separator for oral surgery that's, I don't want to say saves us, but that is a blessing, is our ability to do anesthesia. And most of the oral surgeons that are working currently in large scale general dental DSOs are doing that early in their career because they have a lot of debt and they want to make money, and then they get burnt out and they end up like joining an oral surgery platform practice. Now, I will say that who knows what's going to happen. There's a lot of consolidation going on in oral maxillofacial surgery and all of dentistry right now. A lot of private equity involvement, and our industry is changing. But I will say, it's really a matter of strengthening the relationships that you have and being open to kind of alternative ways of building relationships. So a lot of oral surgeons are very protective of kind of their tacit knowledge, right? But I think you need to be more open to sharing. And I think the more open to sharing you are, the more likely those people with whom you share will trust you to send you what they perceive as the more difficult case anyway. Plus, if you're a guy who's going to show, like I have a periodontist who practices near me who he's a little bit older than I am and never did sinus lifting. Like he was just not trained on how to do it. It wasn't part of their curriculum at that time. It's something that's very, very, I do daily here. And so for maybe a year or so, he'd come and he'd watch me do sinus lifts. And he was all for that entire year sending me his sinus lifts. And now he does a lot of his own sinus lifts. So I'm seeing fewer large sinus lifts from him, but the ones that are a little bit more complex, who is he going to send them to? Me.
Send your way. Yep.
It's the same thing with like, I have a lot of general dentists who say, can you do me a favor, take this tooth out, graft it, but I want to put the implant in. Fine. A lot of guys are a little bit bitter about that. What is this dentist? He doesn't, I'm going to forget that. Just be great. Do the right thing every time. Overall, it comes back to you. And again, if you're going to send me that case, you're going to send me the full arch, or you're going to maybe, the one that looks a little more complex where that needs bone grafting that's a little bit beyond their capacity or whatever. And so for me, I just kind of take what comes my way and I'm happy with it. I don't want to say like, just throw your stuff at me, but really like, if you do the right thing, by and large, I know this is a very simplistic way of looking at it, by and large, things work out. Yeah. And I don't know that that's teachable. I mean, you could express that. But when you ask me that, I think to myself, just to say that my brain works, like you're saying, well, you have this client base who is, you're great with D2C. But maybe there's an opportunity to have some sort of like come together where I do the B2B. I mean, so like, I just think about business like that all the time. Yeah. And so I think to myself, I don't know that it's not that it's not teachable. A lot of, and I'm sure you see this as a consultant, you probably know, you probably know when you meet somebody, if you're going to be able to help them. The guy who gets it on day one, it's in there. The guy who doesn't get it, it's like you could tell them, you could give them the recipe, but if they can't put it together, it's just the unfortunate reality that it's not necessarily going to work as well for them.
Yeah, I think we all used to be the guy that didn't get it, right? So I'll use myself as the example. So for me, it breaks down to the fixed mindset versus the abundance mindset. So what's the fixed mindset? The fixed mindset used to be this for me. I can't tell anybody about marketing. I can't share anything because they're going to steal it. My competitors are going to steal it. The dentists are going to try to do it themselves. I can't even talk about it. If you want our secret sauce, you have to come and you have to pay me for it. Well, guess what? That wasn't very successful. Not a lot of people wanted to sign up for that, right? Then I learned about the abundance mindset, and the abundance mindset is like, there's so much opportunity out there. Just give away everything for free. Give the best stuff that you have away for free and teach other people how to do it. Some people will go and do it themselves, but the other people will look at you as the expert and they'll just be like, it's way easier for me just to hire you and pay you than try to learn it myself. And guess what? It worked. We do events, we do free events, we paid events, and then we record them and give them away for free. Like, I'm just constantly trying to give information away for free because I just want to be known as the expert in the dental marketing space. And the same is true, I believe, with dentists. Most dentists have a fixed mindset, which you described, which is, I can't share this with the dentist, the other dentist, the GP dentist that I work with, because then they're just going to do it themselves. But the part that they're missing is they're not going to view you as the expert then. And that guy that you brought in, that you taught him for a year, he undoubtedly, you are the expert. Even if he sold his practice, he would tell the people there, this is where you send all of your cases. This guy is the expert because he sat at your chair side for a year and learned from you and feasted off of your information. forever, for the rest of his life, you are the expert in his life, and you can't market that. You can't teach that. It's something that you just have to do. And I'm 100% with you. I as soon as you started telling that story, it just flashed back to me and how I was when I first started and how I made that transition. So I think that's huge. If you were on a stage, this will be our last question. If you're on a stage and you were talking to all the oral surgeons in the United States right now, and you had to give one piece of advice, what would be that one piece of advice that you would give to them?
If I was on a stage and I had to give advice to all the oral surgeons, I would say, I'd say my best advice for oral surgeons is to start out with the premise that, and again, this is going to sound a little whatever, but we happen to be in the best, in my opinion, specialty in all of healthcare. I think we are very, very fortunate to have the skill set that we have. We're blessed to be able to relate with the patients the way that we do and treat patients in really these complex ways. And I think what I would say is really just always do the right thing. Always have your compass headed north, because ultimately, and I said it, so I'm just really repeating myself. Ultimately, if you are concerned about the little BS that happens day to day and you get kind of in the weeds with that type of stuff, nothing good comes from that. Always do the right thing. Never worry about, not to say don't worry about the small stuff, because I think I've definitely said on other podcasts, attention to detail in everything that you do implies attention to detail in anything that you do. So definitely pay attention to the fine details. I mean, we work in millimeters and degrees of angles and things like that, but big picture, always do the right thing by your referring doctor. Always do what's right by the patient. Never look to skimp on something. Never look to try to beat a patient up on a number. They can't just always do the right thing. Very simplistic, very holistic view on it, but it's really my guiding principle. You'll have more than enough business. There's enough out there. Just always do the right thing. I know I said that 9 times. I'm sorry. That's what I
do the right thing. That's good stuff. If someone wants to reach out to you and learn more about what you're doing or learn from you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Best way to connect with me is my email. It's JMA, Jason Michael Auerbach, at riversideoralsurgery.com. That's undoubtedly the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, sharing your expertise. I always learn a ton from you, and I'm really excited about your future. I know you're going to continue to do awesome things because of the way you focus and where you put your energy. So thanks so much for sharing it with the world.
Thank you, Gary. Right back at you. I appreciate everything.